Hello, I'll provide an overview of the Technology, Innovation, and Emissions Reduction Compliance Reporting Form for aggregate facilities using 2020 as a benchmark year. The Compliance Report Form is an Excel book with multiple tabs. Its purpose is to collect information demonstrating that the aggregate facility is in compliance with the regulation. We will take the next few minutes to do a brief walkthrough of each of the tabs from left to right. If your workbook opens in protected mode, please go to the File Info menu to turn off protected mode. Please also enable macros for this workbook. We will start at the Instructions tab. Here we provide a brief summary of the purpose of the book and how to configure and complete it. On the Submissions tab, you may enter the compliance year being reported on. If you believe the information you are supplying on the compliance form meets the threshold to be considered confidential under Section 28 of the regulation, please indicate yes under the drop-down for the drop-down menu and supply a letter with your submission detailing which information meets that threshold and how it qualifies. Information is also supplied on this tab about documents which should accompany your form as well as record retention requirements. Please note our preference is that the Statement of Certification tab be signed electronically and submitted as part of the compliance workbook. The next tab is called Section A. Generally, Section A tabs collect administrative information. The Section A tab contains information about the facility, including the facility name and the assigned identifier under tier. Please note that fields with a red notification tag have associated information with them, and if you hover your mouse over the field, you can see the additional instructions that are provided. Information is also collected on the role of reporter, who completes and typically submits the form, the certifying official, who is signing off on the contents of the form, and the public contact for the facility. The next tab, Section A4, is provided for a case where the facility has chosen to have an external consultant complete the compliance form. We now move into the B sections of the form where emissions and production data are reported. In section B1 and B2, all of the aggregate emissions of CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide are reported, with the exception of CO2 from biomass and emissions from fuel that has had the federal fuel charge paid during a period when the facility had a federal exemption in place. In section B1, please list for each Petronex facility the methods used for measuring fuel consumption, CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide. Enter the fuel volume as reported through Petronex, and also the resulting tons of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Also enter the facility, the tier facility name, and the 3-character identifier that was given to the tier facility, as well as the Petronex ID. Please note that the same methodologies must be used within a single conventional oil and gas facility. Also, in the case that you are using a 2019 benchmark year, the same methodology should be used for each, as were used for calculating your benchmark values for each cog. The form will calculate the carbon dioxide equivalents and roll up totals for your aggregate. Moving to section B2, this sheet is for the reporting of emissions from fuel use not reported through Petronex. It includes sections for indicating all the methods applied to fuel gas and non-variable fuels. It also has areas to report the usage of various fuels not reported through Petronex. These fuels can be reported either in volume units or in energy units. There is also a field to report exported CO2 from stationary fuel combustion. Most aggregates will not have any quantity to report here. The bottom part of the sheet shows the calculated total regulated emissions for the aggregate. Section B6 is for the reporting of production. Start by entering the product and associated units which have been assigned to you by the department. If you're using the version of the form that's for people being assigned a 2019 benchmark, you'll need to enter your assigned facility-specific benchmark here also. You may also report electricity exported from conventional oil and gas facilities belonging to the aggregate, if applicable. Then for each Petronex site belonging to the aggregate, report the production as it was reported in Petronex or as calculated from Petronex values. The form will calculate the total production automatically. Moving to section E. This tab calculates the facility-specific benchmark for those using 2020 as a benchmark year based on the reported emissions and production. You'll see this value also appears in section B6 automatically. Moving to section E1, this tab provides an overview of total regulated emissions, allowed emissions, total true-up obligation, as well as credit usage limits. It also indicates if the facility may be eligible to request emissions performance credits. Section 2 shows the number of fund credits the facility has purchased and is using for compliance. It also asks to confirm that the person responsible owns the credits and is using them only once. Fund credits need to be purchased in advance of submitting your compliance report and before June 30th. Section E3 is for reporting the emissions offsets that are being used for compliance. Credits are reported by vintage, either pre-2017 or later, in order to ensure that the corresponding usage limits are met. Please list the serial ranges being retired for compliance in this portion of the form. Check these ranges carefully as they are often a source of error in compliance reporting. Also answer the questions at the bottom of the tab regarding the validity of the offsets being used. Similar to Section E3, Section E4 is for reporting emissions performance credits used for compliance. Again, these are separated by vintage into pre-2017 and 2017 or later. Section E5 provides an overview of the compliance actions and confirms if sufficient true-up obligation has been provided. This takes into account the limits in use of credits by vintage. Please address any issues flagged in this sheet before you submit your compliance workbook. Moving to Section G, this section is to provide details about your third-party assurance provider, including who the signing authority is, contact information for the firm, and how they are qualified under the regulation. Section H should be filled out to give contact information for various roles within the verification team. The next tab is the conflict of interest checklist. This should be filled out by the verifier and confirms if any of the listed questions are true for the engagement. If so, the verifier should contact the department. A signed copy of this sheet should be included as part of the verification report. The statement of qualifications should be filled out by both the designated signing authority and the lead verifier of the third-party assurance provider, where these may be different individuals. It attests to the qualifications of the lead verifier and the third-party assurance provider, and a signed copy should be included in the verification report. The statement of verification is to be completed by the third-party assurance provider and signed by both the lead verifier and designated signing authority, where these are different individuals. The signed copy should be included as part of the third-party verification report. The statement of certification is the last signature sheet in the book, other than the EPC request sheet, and should be signed electronically within Excel by the certifying official. To do this, the certifying official will need to set up a certificate. This can be done at no cost through Windows. Double-click on the X within the signature box. A dialog will appear. You may either sign within the box or select an image of your signature. The bottom part of the signature box will show who has provided the signature. This should match the indicated certifying official in the form. Further edits to the compliance report will clear the signature. Please do not sign the workbook until it is complete and you are ready to submit it. If the facility is requesting emissions performance credits as a result of their annual compliance filing, the emissions performance request sheet needs to be completed and signed. Please outline the activities or changes in practice that have led to intensity improvements at the facility. The Fund Credit Purchase tab should be completed and sent along with your payment or in advance of your payment to our financial services branch. If you wish, you may make one fund payment to cover multiple aggregate facilities. Each facility should be indicated in the table at the bottom of this tab. Again, payment should be completed before submitting your compliance report. You'll be issued a receipt for your payment, which will also be shared with our compliance team. That concludes this overview of the compliance reporting form. As always, if you have questions about the use of this form, you may submit them to aep.ghg@gov.ab.ca. Thank you.